Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Fiume, here live at the IFA2024 National Convention, and looking forward to interviewing some folks at this year's event. I have Michael Mirsky from JM Law Group. Michael, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Great.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah.
So tell me, what do you guys specialize in?
We represent franchisees, starting with FDD review. We do purchases and sales, and my specialty is commercial leasing. So we do leasing for many nationally recognized brands, specifically on the franchisee side.
So tell me, what have you seen? Is there a trend or a change you're seeing in commercial leasing and franchising? Obviously, there's been a huge explosion in franchising in the past few years. Well,
you know, coming out of COVID, I still think that the quality real estate it's still expensive. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of operators went under and didn't make it through COVID, and I think there was the thought that there would be opportunities out there, and while there are, if you still want that real estate at Main and Main, you're going to pay for it, and landlords can drive pretty difficult, hard deals when it comes to leasing terms, deal structure.
Do you feel like the landlords are still in control right now about the market? Obviously, with interest rates so high, this push-pull, obviously, between buyers and sellers, and right. It's making it increasingly more difficult. And I'm wondering, is this still a seller's market?
I mean, I would say that I still see it that way. I see a little more generosity with tenant allowance, which doesn't necessarily seem to make sense, but on many of the deals that I look at, I'm rather surprised at the type of allowance a certain, say, quality of tenant is getting. So the landlords are still willing to provide the incentive, but I still feel that, again, when it comes back to the better real estate, they kind of run the show. Yes. Yeah.
Is this your first IFA or no?
I think this is my fourth.
Your fourth.
Yeah.
So what do you think so far? And what's your objective at this year's IFA?
First of all, I like it. I think it's terrific. I mean, it's good for our firm. But our objective it's more meeting people that we already do business with, just like reinforcing that relationship. Of course, you always want new opportunities, and we've already come across those, which is terrific and exciting. But I also think, just seeing the familiar faces, letting them know that, we're still very involved. I think that's the real value here. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I got one more question for you. If I was a potential franchisee of a concept, what are maybe one or two really, specific things that you want them to really take a look at in the FDD that, is kind of a hot button for you?
Well, my work is less with the FDD, but I could tell you about leasing or deal structure,
sure, okay.
if that would help. Because I actually think that's an excellent question. I think what's primary importance is the personal guarantee. Landlords are going to want you to personally guarantee the lease.
Right.
And many times brokers kind of avoid that issue because deals tend to slow up because it's so instrumental in getting a deal done. And tenants may not, or the franchisee may not always understand the implications of a personal guarantee. So I think it's absolutely critical that the franchisee understands the implications of a personal guarantee and goes into the deal knowing that, depending on quality of real estate and a number of other factors, deal structure, they may have to consider agreeing to a full guarantee, which obviously creates greater exposure.
Sure.
It's our job as their attorney, if there is not a reduced guarantee, to find other ways to really limit their personal exposure. A second provision, you asked for two that I think are important. The rent commencement date. Ever since COVID, obtaining permits, building permits has really slowed down. The municipalities are extremely slow. Having your rent commencement date linked to receipt of permits and not lease execution, I think is absolutely critical. The last thing you want to do as a new operator is pay what we call dead rent, meaning paying rent prior to opening for business. If you can link your rent commencement date to permits, it's almost you've solved that issue. Without that, you're at some risk of maybe paying rent before you open for business, and that's a critical mistake. So those two issues I really focus on.
Michael, that's great advice. Thanks so much for being on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the time, and hope you guys enjoy your time here at IFA. Thanks. Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.